What are the spaces that vision dwells in? How does vision come to man? How does sight translate into reality? How does reality stare into the face of the imagined? How can we allow the vision of the world a satisfaction beyond belief? I believe in every human being's inner structure. Behind their eyes, an event, an incident will occur. This is the most unique incident that is possible for the human being. It is the incident of realizing the non local observer within. The non local observer within is a suggestion that we are creatures where our physical reality is dictated based on locality, based on our reference to other phenomena. But when I say the non local witness, that means before referring to a location, the eyes of the cosmos were open. And so we may be just simple people trapped in simple lives, wondering what is beyond and how truly the complex realities sing on this planet. For me, I have found that either my moments are divided between advancement of self or advancement of world. Pretty much your attention goes to two things on this planet. If you want to advance yourself, there's usually two ways. One way is you take from the world and you advance. The other is you give to the world to advance. If our civilization could get what it wanted, if it only had a system where it could give, imagine every day, every human being born with endless gifts coming to them. What that means is we have to start caring for the children of the future generations that don't exist yet. That means even though I am in this present moment now, and the children of the future generations haven't arrived, but we must see them here. Because most parents, they see their children as their greatest self continuing on. They see their children as an extension of their sense of self. You cannot spend your whole lifetime on a phenomena and expect to have nothing. That is the issue with nature. It survives only to realize the futility, but in that futility is all the meaning required for the life. A moment will come where all moments will be intersecting one phenomenon. That phenomena is the real you. Your sense of self is divided. The nature of the mind is that it has two hemispheres. In some sense, one can say our intelligence is oscillating between the known and the unknown. It is vibrating between the real and the unreal. It is vibrating between, it is moving between emptiness and fullness, between everything and nothing. The world moves. And that is how the mind works. The mind needs space to do its work. Literally, if you were to, let's say, sculpt a statue or do some sort of like next level handicraft, like you would see that you would require space, and you would also require internal adjustments to your internal space, such as concentration, focus, and just the liberation of attention. Everybody's attention has a leash on it. That leash is the ego. So what if I told you a part of you has enslaved a part of you? We would ask the mind to testify. We would have the armies of rationality and the armies of irrationality collide repetitively, non-stop, only to discover that we are breaking ideas that we put in the first place. This is why war was futile, because it was an attention or it was a direction of attention. The attention could have gone internal, but it went external. When there is rage against nations, there is in some sense a war among brothers. And when there's a war among brothers, the family will get hurt. The human species will suffer when it sees it is suffering. You will see there will come a new archetypal role for the human personality. We are no longer lonely dwellers in an endless cosmos. We are the effort of eons into the cause of now. There's this incredible story. It's an Indian story. And it is a story that is ascribed to Swami Shivananda. Swami Shivananda was this next level kind of enlightened man in India. And what happens is the story is being shared by one of his disciples, later on named Swami Vishnunanda. And Swami Vishnunanda says one evening, like he was a young man new to this monastery, and so he says that he suddenly gets this eerie feeling, and he runs out of his bedroom into out of his sleeping space to go and see what's happening outside. And his intuition was right. He sees this psychopath, this random person with an axe, is trying to kill Swami Shivananda, this peaceful kind of next level pacifist man, kind of is sitting and meditating, kind of at the head of the monastery. And this man with an axe is trying to hit him in the head, and Swami Shivananda is just looking at the man. And as Swami Shivananda is looking at the man, every time the guy comes in with the axe to hit it on Swami Shivananda's kind of bald head, every time he comes to do it, the axe just moves, as if there is like Yoda from the corners using the force to move the axe. Like, and so what happens is Swami Vishnunanda is a young guy, and he sees that there is a disharmony. And he runs, and he tackles the guy with the axe, and eventually the police get involved, and the guy goes to the jail, local jail. The next morning, it's awkward. Everyone's sitting. Swami Vishnunanda tells the story to everyone, and everyone is awkwardly, silently, like, holy shit. Swami Shivananda, this incredibly aware person, was about to die. The story gets even more intense. Because suddenly, Swami Vishnunanda and all the other disciples at the table, they see Swami Shivananda as if their master, after like last night, somebody with an axe was trying to kill him. But this morning, he's peacefully walking, and he walks to a table where, like on the kitchen, where all the fruit and stuff was, and he picks all the fruit and puts it on this plate, like on this tray, and he starts walking, and the disciples are like, okay, some morning Swami Vishnunanda would eat. He would eat alone, like, I don't know, by a river or something, right? But people follow him and see, no, Swami Shivananda is walking to, they had a car there. And so, in some sense, what ends up happening is that Swami Vishnunanda is heading for the jail. He's heading for the police station. And so his disciples, help him, and he gets a ride, and he goes there, and all his disciples are following him. They're like, "Oh my God, There's no way Swami Shivananda is taking this bowl of fruit for this guy in jail." And to their surprise, the unthinkable happens. So I want you to imagine, this Swami Shivananda, this man, of course, this enlightened man, was a very physically big guy. Okay, so what happened is that he goes into the jail and people know who he is instantly. So the police officers let him in, and he's like, "I want to see the person who tried to kill me." And something incredibly fascinating happens. I can't ever say the story without my voice shaking in this one. Because Swami Krishnananda, in front of all those police officers, in front of all those criminals, in front of all his disciples, he puts the bowl of fruit. The police officers open the cell, and Swami Shivananda puts the bowl of fruit in front of the guy, and he bows to the guy. And he bows, and he's like as if praying. It's as if he's praying to this man. And his disciples are shocked. Everybody's teary-eyed. They're like, "What the fuck? This man's come to his killer, and he's offering him a blessing." You see, the idea of a blessing back in the day was to give all that you can. That's the only way. So what happens is, the moral of the story is that Swami Shivananda later on tells his disciples that the reason he did that was because it was not a man with an axe. It was the Logos. It was the divine will. It was the universe moving behind the eyes of that killer. Jesus Christ, I'm becoming too emotional. So in some sense, Swami Shivananda could see the bigger picture in the small. And we tend to nowadays in 2019 see the smaller picture in the big. Rather than wondering about the deeper dimensions of the world, we have just limited it to what, 4 dimensions, and that's good enough, like 6 dimensions or 10 dimensions if you entertain string theory. But what it is that intelligence has to do with attention, and attention is an accumulation. Like all these things that I'm telling you right now, it's not that they're appearing out of nowhere. What it is that we are data processing creatures, but we're data processing creatures that dictate the way we organize the data process. So, how we process the data has to do with our free will, but the type of data that we have to process it's not in our free will. The world will bring you gifts from unknown places. The world will bring you voices, because sometimes a gift is not just a physical. Like if you wanted to give someone a physical gift, sure, go to like the most expensive store and buy the most expensive thing and tell that person it's the most expensive thing and then give the gift. but but if you wanted to give a true gift, you see, the greatest gift that human beings can give one another is their honest presence. There is no greater gift. It doesn't matter if you have nothing, but in a moment stand as if you are aware of everything, because that is the value of life. If we dare not act alive, we are dead inside. The gods of man and the gods of God are two different ideals. There are some people going to the top of the mountain. Literally, they have come into manifestation to experience collective rhythms. It's kind of like as if you paid for a hotel and you've come and stayed in the hotel, and that hotel is human manifestation. We're all checking into a hotel, guys, you know? this 8 billion trillion countless stars, a hotel called this universe society. You see, the voice of nature is here too. If the voice of nature was not here, I would instantly probably become a technological being. What that means is, if the dimension of nature wasn't open, that means if we had not, if we were right now a creature that was lost to a program, it had no way out of that program, I would instantly go towards technology. Let me tell you why. Because it will end there. When you forget the soul, the body rules the mind. But when you remember the soul, the mind guides the body. You see, the mind is an older brother, the body is a younger brother, and the soul is the oldest brother. That is, has gone. Like the middle brother and the younger brother don't see this older brother. You see, I'm telling you, just study mathematics and you will study all philosophy. I laughed so hard when I realized this. I went searching for various different philosophies. I'm like, okay, let's see what people have, how far people have looked in this life. And then I reached a sort of chaotic moment where I got a realization I did not expect, as if you've gone to the store to buy like orange juice, but suddenly out of nowhere, life gives you apple juice, and you still drink it and are refreshed and are liberated in some way. So, what I mean by that is that I went looking for truth's illusion. I did not look for truth at first. I looked for the illusion. I did not look for the answer. I wondered about the problem. I did not look for the result. I wondered about, in some sense, how the inquiry started. For me, this is the issue. It's not, it can't be anybody's fault. It's the nature of design. That means some things, regardless of how much upset you get about it because of expectations, you have to acknowledge the nature of the design that is there. Because sound has a design as well. It's fascinating. Right now, if there was an extraterrestrial here that couldn't speak the language and I was speaking to you online, you know, it would be so confusing for a creature to be like, why is a human being speaking to an object? When you speak on the phone, you're speaking to an object. But that object, that objective moment carries. That is the value of waves. For me, science was, it's as if religion was trying to get us into heaven, but once we got into heaven, that's when science is important. Because heaven is all about original state. You see, we say man was created in the heavens and man fell from the heavens, and man returns to the heavens. You see, a lot of our mythology is inspired about what was beyond the clouds, right? And so we have to wonder about, what is beyond the clouds of our imagination. And the pilots of the new conscious era, the pilots of consciousness, must in some sense see beyond themselves. That means you have been conditioned in this life to value yourself. All your ideas, all your beliefs, they arise from the experience you have access to. But imagine 200 years from now, a man came and said, hey man, you want to connect your head to a computer and get access to everybody's memories, this database of memories for a monthly fee. And so what it is we are working to be alive inefficiently, and that is the tragedy of civilization. And what happens at the edge of an extreme, the other extreme is found. You see, that's the cool thing. You cannot break without a new dimension of vision arising. Anytime you have suffered, literally it's been, you can say, the mind's natural way of cleansing itself. Suffering is the effect of change. So it's kind of like, how are you interpreting change, dear listener? You know, if something is taken away from you, do you feel you don't exist? You know, if somebody comes and takes away your hat, will you feel like you are not alive? And so, in some sense, as a mind, when a phenomenon moves the body, does it mean the mind doesn't exist? The mind exists. Let me tell you what's happened. Let me tell you something so hilarious that I find happened in history. And it has to do with agriculture, and it has to do with also the Industrial Revolution. At some point in our history, we started paying attention to the psychology of our creations rather than the psychology of how we were a creator in the moment. And we reached a point as human beings where we started creating stuff out of the figment of our imagination. Okay? Every great inventor is in some sense a great thought. as if their eyes saw something that none of us did, and their eyes, they had the audacity to carry out the task. As if Beethoven was like, okay, I have this next level piano playing ability. Let me just see how far I can take it. Perhaps I will reach the same pure lands as the pioneers. You see, that's the thing about mastery. The master is at the front seat of the roller coaster of their life. So they are not afraid of it. They are actually running into it. And language and the mind is so fascinating, so multidimensional, that the kind of world we are introduced to is not the actual world. If I told you there is 8 billion simulations of the world just hovering right now in the air, what would you say? Would you reject, would you deny, or would you say, Mr. Within, I see that we're each in our own room, but what is the point of the major room, the physical reality? Physicality is what is connecting and being the common denominator between us. So here's the issue. Too much of an extreme abstract ideology pulls one's attention from the manifest. So what that means is if you decide to be like, put on the spiritual hat, you put on a hat and you think you're a spiritual person. Oh, I'm a soul, yay! You know, if you put on the spiritual hat, the issue is you will not see physical reality as it is, because an object doesn't have to be a thought. But if we ask what is the purpose of life, we're asking what does all objective reality mean? What's its purpose? So in some sense, we are there is a sort of subconscious obsession which you need to tame. This has been one of the hardest things for me. It's like it's not like astrophysics. Kind of hard. It's kind of you are a certain energetic being. This energy, by the free will, can express in inefficient and efficient decisions. So, which is being chosen, and how is it being chosen, and based on what is it being chosen? There's this incredible poet named Hafez where he says, "One regret, dear world, I wish not to have on my deathbed is that I did not kiss you enough." And that sentence is like as if one regret, dear world, I hope not to have is that I didn't live enough. We are worried about our lives because we know we are here for a little while, at least physically. That means we are leasing out these atoms as an attributeless mind. There's various schools of thought, and that's very important because anytime anytime there is a war, a certain percentage of humanity enters the unknown. We are human beings in what I would playfully call known land. The land where phenomena that is known can only be articulated into the meaning of the living being. We are stuck in our language, pretty much, as a civilization. And I wonder about this, and I realize it has to be the evolution of the language. Because think about it. Imagine you're a young child right now. You are, let's say, 10 years old right now. Imagine your 10-year-old self, okay? And imagine that as a 10-year-old, you suddenly discover what the encyclopedia is. And you become very fascinated. You go open the encyclopedia and you see it's as if you have found a sort of elder scrolls in a cave, you know? And so you start going over the encyclopedia and you see that the whole encyclopedia has to do with the positioning of symbolism as image. So it's as if you have access to a treasure where it's as if there, I remember when I was young reading the encyclopedia, there were certain words that I could not, it was like not comprehensible to me. So it was as if it was a kind of, whenever you don't see the full picture, the world has become a puzzle. You know, it's not just a common theme in the movies of today. It was a common theme in ancient times. You see, ancient people looked at the concept of power, and because their minds entertained gods, they acknowledged this deeper context to the origin and the authorization of power to manifest. And so, any human being who entertains the notion of the divine will, this means that you have gotten tired of beliefs. You have gotten tired of ideology. You look at life and you wonder, a species that has opened its eyes once, what is it here for? If you choose to live an eternal life, the inner life can be fulfilling, but it will be left to you will be left in a world where you are the God. Behind your eyes, you are God. In front of your eyes, God is like the unknown. You cannot know it. So the moment you go within, external reality moves in unknown ways. The moment you go without, internal reality moves in unknown ways. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, I've kind of played around with these kind of states, only to come to the conclusion that regardless of whichever way I chose to dance in the abyss is being watched from beyond it. So what I mean right now is this is the clue. This is the clue to the mystical glitch of an existential reality where there is consciousness and matter simultaneously being one moment. You see, so we have to wonder about the forces of the world. And so man, it's as if gravity was here, we have taken gravity to court and we are like, tell us who do you work for? There can always be deeper dimensions. Dimensions are things that are evoked. In ancient times, that there was a sort of power which had to do with the physical accumulation, how well you could move physical matter. You know, so back in the day, your power in the battlefield was how how intelligently your sword would move in your hand. You know, the human being is kind of like, you know, the oxidizers on astronauts, kind of when they're like in space, kind of moving around the space outside of the space station. So similarly, we have to begin realizing that we have become conscious. It took us 4 billion years to be able to see the world like it is. You know, anybody who's stressed and depressed and suffering, that way you're seeing you're suffering. It took you 4 billion years to do that. So after this point of you have arrived at the endless. It's kind of like being on that ship in that old school flat earth idea where the ship went at the edge of the ocean and then just hovered into empty space. It's a dance, to be honest. Enlightenment is a dance. It's a dance where your inner reality no longer distrusts the world, so it has no longer declared rage into the world. You see, anger is something where it has to do with how you have put the world on an axis for yourself. Because there's phenomena occurring all the time right now. It's as if whether I like it or not, my heart is beating, you know? Whether I like it or not, the light beams of the sun enter our eyes. It's kind of like this is the next step for civilization, especially for um, the years of 2019. It's as if we are walking in an art gallery, looking at different artwork. We are existing in a world where we are looking at various classifications and branches of knowledge. But Mr. Within is saying that as you're walking in this art gallery, you're going to realize now, after you have seen all the artwork on the walls, you have to now learn from the whole art gallery. You have to step outside your truth, as if it was a house not built by you. So we have to define what free will means, right? Because the kind of the most you could say intense moment of the free will is when creation is rebelling against creator. Like I remember seeing like one of the Transformer movies years ago, where at the end of it, like Optimus Prime, the hero of many children's childhood, is going to go kill the people who created him. Like it's like, I mean, it is badass, but at the same time, what is the value of that idea? You see, because concepts echo. Just because you hear a word here, right now, I'm saying something. It doesn't mean that you instantaneously understand things. If you follow your authentic interest, um, you'll realize that anything that you are good at, you are being more yourself in. You know, how do I say this? It's kind of like just a simple question. Imagine the game of truth finished. You, as a human being, stopped searching for truth. Imagine there was no longer any differences between human beings. We had somehow managed to ideologically clone ourselves. When I see, for example, when I see a religious ideology and I see that religious ideology denies the creativity of its creation, it's as if religion's God is the eyes of a certain way of looking at life. But life works through many uncertain ways as well. And so culture and society has to be free from the inner ideals of a human being. So that collective identity has to emerge that's different than any of us. I'll explain. Believe it or not, it has to do with the mind animating the inanimate without reason. And because it's an instantaneous command, you can't put a story to it. It's like the character, the setting, and the storyteller are all present in one moment to all have validity. So it's an existential presence that nullifies the experiential discrimination. Because the only reason people, I'll tell you, even it's very hilarious. No one is like anyone else. You have because you have a different DNA. It's as if you went to the optician and you got different glasses. You know. And so this is the thing that eventually after you live for yourself, like imagine you forgot about your civilization, your world, you forgot about everything and you're like, okay, it's just me and the world, you know? Let's say you go to that sort of fish market and start selling fish. You get so selfish. What happens is you feel eventually at some point you miss out and your conscience, which is how your mind subconsciously has visualized the opposite of your life, will pull you. It's kind of like, think of it this way: the lion doesn't eat um, uh, prey that it doesn't hunt. It has to hunt the prey itself and then it eats it. And I want to say that we as human beings don't entertain an idea unless it is real to us in some sense. And especially all those poor souls trapped in the idea that they have to rush in this world. The world is moving at an artificially fast speed, and a lot of human value and creativity in life is being forgotten. It's as if technology is the issue with technology is not that it's good or bad. The issue with technology is that it is taking the attention of nature from nature away. It's like the tears of Gaia as man walked away. We deviated from the supremely natural. It's as if somebody asked Plato, "What time is it?" And Plato was like, "Time is the moving image of eternity, and eternity doesn't have a time." And it's like the dude's like, "Yo, okay, relax, man. It's fun all the time." But Plato does say that time is the moving image of eternity, and eternity is the unknown. So time is the other side of the coin of the unknown. And at most, what the unknown is an authorized. It's just a freedom. It's just like the world has to be better before you can. And the only way the world can be better is in some sense if externally it is not acting up, you have to internally give it. So it's as if when you see, for example, it's kind of like the kingly mindset, the true king, the true like in if we were to analyze like the psychological structures of you know monarchs and their families and who they were around and how they spoke to people around them, it's as if we could to some degree see that the king realized that he was once not a king and he became a king. It doesn't matter even if you're a prince or a king, you're not a king until you become a king. It's something you become, right? So when most people like the West has been introduced kind of through European trials and errors to a sort of the cruel king, the tyrant. Okay, the tyrant is if the kind of angry guy who took power, who got control. And so we see that is one sort, but another psychological approach is that the king sees a king in the whole moment. The king is not a king because he did what was right for himself, because he saw something more than himself and he walked towards it. It's a potential dormant within all vision. It doesn't matter how your DNA opens. Just learn, language as well as you can, and then begin your exploration. Because nobody knows what is going on. Because realistically, we are on a rock in the middle of nowhere. Just like the caveman made fire, we have made language. And so after an era of idol worship, we went to an era of ideal worship, and believe it or not, even till 2019, we're still worshiping ideas, not realizing that behind the scenes we have had certain natural evolutionary updates that I'm telling you, it's as if we are a civilization that is wearing clothing that is too tight for it to breathe. That's the issue. It's like you it's like a person who suddenly in an instant, how can I tell you? It's like if you have to change your clothing because you're growing out of it. So similarly, you have to change certain ideologies because you're growing out of it, but eventually realizing the value of life is the opportunity given, which is a sort of freedom to choose. That's pretty much the kind of power in our hands, I feel. Our choices can lead to big things. There's a person known by the name of Alan Watts. I was listening to one of his lectures, and he brought up this interesting philosophical point that if two spheres are spinning around each other in a vacuum, which is spinning around which? That means we need a sort of room at the back of our minds to hold everything that we feel we know. That room tends to be designed in accordance to the sense of self. So who you think you are right now is actually how far you feel you've seen the world. So if someone asks you who are you right now, you know, and you suddenly instantly thought about it, that thought of you is not per se a reflection of who you are, but it's a reflection of how much of the world you've seen so far. You know, so we suddenly realize we're all journeyers in the unknown. We are traveling consciousness in cosmic space. You know, we find that compared to many of the other species on this planet, the human being has the advantage of having hands and fingers. And so, even though technology is opening the dimensions of our minds, we have to still have activities in regards to physical activity being done. That means imagine the whole world, the whole labor sectors of our economy became automated. So people no longer had labor jobs. So, in some sense, what would the civilization do then? Of course, many would just automatically walk into their internal realities. However, it all comes down to vision. Vision is the most valuable resource. And because we're 8 billion people with different views, so we all have a unique vision. So we all have a sort of unique world that we see. So this unique world that we see, it has to use its own intuition to reestablish a new relationship with phenomena. Because that is what really the context of spirituality points to. It is when you wonder about how what you know is here. And for me in 2011, I had a unique experience where I was sitting on this rock in the middle of this river, and the river was coming from behind me. So I was just watching the water move forward, and I felt like I was poetically seeing time in that river. The movement of time going forward, the whole universe being like that. And I remember suddenly this question came to me, and I asked myself, who's looking through my eyes right now? And I realized I had no way of knowing, because every thought that I thought I was, every concept I had on the universe or God or whatever, was all the thought I was observing. So I suddenly established a relationship with the moment where what I could observe, I was not. Do you see? So it's as if we say you're not just a body, you're a mind, because you're not just an object, you're an object that's conscious of itself. You're an atomic oriented creature, cellular creature that is aware of itself. You know, that awareness of self is what many creatures on this planet, if they had, they would be also personalities like us. Oh. Anyways, guys, vision dwells in conscious space. The mind moves in many ways. It moves externally, it moves internally. When the act of expression moves, it's as if where is it directed? So if I want to speak to an external audience, I speak internally. But if I want to move my internal abstract dimensions, it's kind of like speaking, but it has to do with your attention moving. So right now, it's not like you can just move your body. You can also move your attention. That it also moves your whole body, and that attention at its pure form is the whole moment. So in some sense, you're trying to move the world, and that's where the fallacy of the illusion begins. Okay, so you will eventually come to this ultimate conclusion that life is being itself, and you calm down as a human being. You realize nature strangely knows what it's doing. And then you find freedom from certain archetypes by realizing these archetypes, these personalities that you're behind your mind, which are inspiring your current personality, they suddenly become laws of the universe. They become, it's as if they become inanimate. Okay? So the whole superstitious dimension disappears, because the whole superstitious thing is the evocation of thought and matter. So on some level, the true approach of a human being to a world that is endless is to wonder about where it began. And I think, that's a good way of saying how that's a good inspiration for conscious living. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Much blessings and namaste.